Alrighty, guys, here he is. Here I am. Here we are. Welcome to Talking Ball with Scotty and Sergio. Sergio in LA. How are you doing, brother?
What's up, my man? I'm doing well. Beautiful day out here. Life's good.
Yeah.
Except for COVID.
Yeah, man. I've been bragging on the last couple of podcasts how well we've dealt with it, and now the northern beaches of Sydney is in lockdown. The cluster's growing. The borders are closing. I think I jinxed us and talked too soon, but as long as we're safe, we're here. The basketball is a couple of days away from getting the season tip-off underway. We've got some more stuff we need to talk about, Serge. Today, guys, we're going to keep pumping through our team analysis. Today, we're going to run through L to M. We have the Los Angeles Clippers, Los Angeles Lakers, the Memphis Grizzlies, the Milwaukee Bucks, the Minnesota Timberwolves, and the Miami Heat. But before we get into those, bit of news around the league. Serge, we got some new contracts signed. Rudy Gobert signing a 5-year, $205 million extension. Any thoughts about this one?
Yeah, I was a little surprised. I didn't know if he was going to be worth that much money, but apparently there's a lot of people get $200 million contracts these days.
I think he becomes the highest paid big of all time nearly as a center. And I think a lot of people were curious about this after what obviously happened with COVID and Rudy Gobert licking his hands and touching every microphone and phone at the table. And that's pretty much the start of COVID in the NBA.
Yeah, people kind of forgot about that. I think COVID got so massive after that like he was kind of, he got a free pass on that one.
He got lucky because I know Donovan Mitchell wasn't particularly happy with him. And a lot of people were saying, is their relationship too broken to mend? And it seems like they've mended it. They played all right in the playoffs. They didn't make it past the first round, but they both played well.
Yeah. I think those two need to find common ground, and whatever issues they had, just get over it, because they have a hell of a team, and they're going to be there both now for the next 5 years, right? Or at least contracted to. So
yeah, well, you have your scorer and your main defender locked down for the next 5 years. So Utah can just build pieces and teams around that, and they should be in the playoff hunt for the next few years. Next on the agenda, Kyle Kuzma. A couple of days after he said he wasn't sure what his role was in the Los Angeles Lakers, that gets thrown out the window. He signs a 3-year, $40 million contract extension to stay with the Lakers. You're in LA over there, Serge. How's everyone feel about Kuzma staying on?
I think people like Kuzma. It's a rough time playing with two new stars, and he was the only one left behind after those big trades for Anthony Davis. And I think, he had his moments, but he's a proven scorer. He just needs a bit more consistency. I think this contract for the Lakers is good value.
Yeah, it definitely is. And what I think it does is it still leaves it a little bit open for trade. The Lakers, depending on how the season's going with COVID and everything, they might be looking for a trade, and that's not the hardest contract to trade. They might have to throw in someone else there, but I can definitely see them keeping Kuzma or trading him for a better, maybe two-way piece or another vet.
For sure. Definitely the price is easy to work with. And Kuzma, He's still young in his career, so you don't know. He could have a breakout season.
Yeah, hopefully. If he can break out and become that scorer, that starting 4 that the Lakers have been hoping for, or maybe even a 3, then this season is well on track for the Los Angeles Lakers.
And with LeBron kind of resting more, he's probably going to get more minutes too.
Yeah, we say that every year. This is the year, like, when is LeBron, this is year 18 he's coming into now. When is he going to slow down? When does Father Time start to catch up? We say this every year, but LeBron is a freak of nature, physically, mentally, and it seems like this is the year for him to take a few games off. But knowing LeBron, he probably won't want to.
No, maybe at the beginning a bit, but I think he's at that point in his career that he's grateful and he wants to play a lot. So I let the guy play. But also, I think we have to reduce his minutes. Living in the city of the Lakers. I think he has to shoot for kind of Giannis minutes. Remember Giannis, MVP last year, only averaged 30 minutes per game, which is insane.
It's the old.
There's no reason why LeBron should be playing 36, 37 when that team is that deep. when they have those bench players, that can give relief to the Lakers so LeBron can get a little extra time on the bench.
Yeah, you do what the Warriors did with KD when they got him a couple of years ago. You go hard for those first 3 quarters, you blow teams out, and your team is deep enough to just keep that lead or only drop it a little bit, and you win games. These guys get rested, and there's plenty left in the tank for the playoffs. Last but not least, we seem to be talking about this guy in every pod, but let's have a quick chat about James Harden. Just seen on Bleacher Report today, the 2 teams that are settling in as favourites for James Harden at the moment are the Celtics and the Raptors. After all the chat about Miami, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, Brooklyn, the Celtics and the Raptors have pushed ahead. Serge.
What a turn of events, huh?
Yeah, and these are really interesting trades because both the Celtics and Raptors probably don't have as much depth as the Nets, but there's definitely some interesting pieces, especially for me for Boston. Is Jaylen Brown part of that trade if you're going for James Harden?
So what I heard is that Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart would be part of the trade.
Yeah, fair enough.
The only guy who's untouchable is Tatum.
Yeah, and I'm assuming Houston probably wouldn't be looking at Kemba at the moment, even though the monies are pretty similar, but with the injury and John Wall and the roster as well.
The age, they'd be getting 2 pieces that are a bit younger. Kemba's what, 30?
I believe he's 30.
Yeah, so we get 2 pieces, Marcus Smart and Jaylen Brown, which are in their mid-20s. So they have quite a few more years left, and they have not had significant injuries like Kemba has had. You
tell me, is this team? Playoffs are so hard in the West, but considering a Brooklyn and Houston trade, is a starting lineup of John Wall, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, Christian Wood, and DeMarcus Cousins something that interests you?
Ooh. Well, this year with the play-in for the last 2 spots, anything can happen, I feel.
Yeah. Well, in a couple of pods, guys, once we finish all our team analysis, we'll have our big season predictions where we'll pick our winners, the top 8, plus another couple of teams that will make the play-in tournament, our MVPs, and we'll have a good chat because it'll be interesting trying to figure out who's going to make the top 10 this year in the conferences because, again, the West is stacked. And most of the teams that we are talking about today, 4 out of the 6, are in the West. Let's get into that right now. The 2 first teams are the LA teams. So let's get started with the Los Angeles Clippers. Last year, they had 49-23, which is good enough for second in the West. Their GM is Michael Winger. Their coach this year is Ty Lue. Their guards, Reggie Jackson, Luke Kennard, Pat Beverly, Lou Williams, Jordan Ford, Kai Bowman, Chase Scrubs on a 2-way contract. Their forwards are Serge Ibaka, Malik Fitz, Paul George, it's a hard one to pronounce, Mfundo Kabangele, Daniel Oturo, Marcus Morris, Nicholas Batum, Pat Patterson, Kawhi Leonard, Rayson Tucker, and their centers are Ivica Zubac. Serge, a few new signings this year. You got Luke Kennard, and the big one is Serge Ibaka and Nicholas Batum. See what he's got left in the tank. But do you think the Clippers are there again? They're second in the West?
I think so. I think I think Paul George is going to come back with a vengeance. He was bashed by the media, and willfully so. He just didn't show up in the playoffs. So I think he's been training hard in the offseason, and look for him to be more of a leader as well this year.
Yeah, I've got to disagree just a little bit. I don't think they're going to be second in the West. I've got them, I believe, 4th or 5th. I just think that we've seen the Kawhi and Paul George. Hopefully they're both fit this season, but they both need to take a little bit of time off, especially Kawhi to get his body right. And this team, Serge Ibaka is a great signing, I think. Luke Kennard as well, as a good backup shooting guard, but they're still missing a point guard for me, someone who can just set them up. Because last year in the playoffs, it seemed that Paul George and Kawhi were having to initiate pick and rolls if Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell went on there. So I think they're going to need a little bit of help, and they've got to figure out who's the leader in this team because it seemed like it was the coach last year, and he's not there anymore.
Yeah, I'm surprised the Clippers didn't go for Derrick Rose. That would have been a good little coming off the bench point guard,
Yeah.
A guy who can attack and kind of gives them a lot of options.
I still think this team, the longer the season, there's a trade somewhere in here. I don't think Reggie Jackson's and Pat Beverly are going to be their only 2 point guards on the roster. I have a feeling Pat Bev might go at some point. They're so good defensively. With him and without him, they just need someone to just handle the ball a little bit, take a little bit of pressure. I thought Chris Paul would have been in the running with them this year as well, but I think that contract was just too hard for the Clippers to integrate in their team.
Yeah, it's for too much money. But I think a lot of people in LA really wanted Chris Paul back because he's exactly what they need. They need a floor general.
I think if Chris Paul is on this team with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, this team is, I think they're number 1 in the East for me. I think he would have changed it, but that's not the case. So as a starting lineup, I've got Pat Beverly, Paul George, Marcus Morris, Kawhi Leonard, and Zubac. You got anything different there? You think Sergio Ibaka might find his way into the starting team?
I think they're going to go with Zubac because of the age, but look for Ibaka to get a lot of minutes. They're probably going to be splitting minutes almost.
Yeah, and it seemed like Zubac started a lot last year, played really well. First half, second half, but he doesn't seem to be a guy that usually finishes the games. And I think Serge Ibaka can definitely play that center position. He's a great defender.
He's become a stretch now.
He's
become stretch the core.
I think we remember back in the day when he was at OKC, really young, didn't have a lot to his offensive game, but was a really good defender. That defense has stayed there, and he can stretch the floor now, which lets Paul George and Kawhi kind of play off the elbow a little bit and play a few post-up positions.
Yeah, I think the Clippers are going to be okay. I think they'll be a little bit higher than what you are saying, but we'll get to that.
In a couple of days.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Let's move on. Let's cross the other side of town and let's go to the Los Angeles Clippers. In 2019 and 2020, they finished first in the West with 52-19. Not much has changed in the office.
Lakers, right?
Sorry, the Lakers. Sorry, yep. Last year, not much has changed in their front office with Rob Pelinka still the GM. Frank Vogel helped win the title last year. Their team on the guards: Dennis Schroeder, Xavier Simpson, Wes Matthews, Taylor Horton-Tucker, Quinn Cook, Contavious Caldwell-Pope, Alex Caruso. Their forwards: Alfonso McKinney, Kostas Antetokounmpo, Kyle Kuzma, Jared Dudley, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Montrezl Harrell, Markieff Morris, and their center is Marc Gasol. That is a hell of a squad, Sergio.
Amazing. As we were talking about, Pelinka did a great job of finding some fill-ins, some great fill-ins and some great upgrades. The Lakers are stacked. They're better than last year, and they're a favorite right now to win back-to-back.
Yeah, there aren't too many teams that win the title and go out and pick up 2 of the guys that were in the top 3 for 6th man of the year last year in Dennis Schroeder and Montrezl Harrell. Sorry, Montrezl Harrell for me is going to destroy teams on the bench again this year. He has some
I
good
can't believe they got
pieces
Harrell. You rarely see one guy go from like the Clip, from in the same city to different teams. It doesn't happen too much.
He's getting paid $9.225 million this year. There's a guy that averaged about 8 and 10 last year coming off the bench. Everyone thought that he was going to go to one of these smaller teams that were going to pay him a lot of money and he'd be starting as a power forward or a center. But, man, this team has so many different options the way they can play. Marc Gasol, I think, will start as the center next to Davis. Be a great anchor defensively. He can also stretch out, hit a 3, defend on the perimeter. That means they've got Davis and Gasol who can kind of swap a little bit who's playing center. They're starting a lineup this year. I've got Schroeder starting with Caldwell-Pope at shooting guard, LeBron James, Davis, and Gasol. There's obviously going to be a lot of rest for these teams. I think LeBron might have a couple of days off, so will Anthony Davis. They only stopped playing basketball 2 months ago when they won the title, Serge, so they have to be a little bit tired.
Yeah, with this team, like even if you looked at them through preseasons, they're going through so many different lineups. So they're going to have infinite options of giving people rest and playing different squads. This team's just very stacked.
Yeah, and they've got a lot of guys that we talk about. A lot of memes out there about Alex Caruso, the Caruso Show, but he is a clutch player defensively, especially when they needed him in the playoffs, and so was Caldwell-Pope. Taylor Horton-Tucker is looking better and better. this bench, when they're blowing out teams, they're going to continue with the job for me. They're just going to destroy teams this year.
Yeah, they got to do what the Warriors did a few years ago. Sit your starters by the end of the third quarter and don't put them back in.
The only question that we've got here, obviously, we've spoken about this before, is Dennis Schroeder. His management spoke that he was going to be the starting point guard. I think he will. I think he's going to play a lot of minutes with the thing, but is he going to be happy with that role? That's the question.
Well, I think, he's just going to play a little bit more off the ball. And I think LeBron's still going to play point forward during parts of the game. They'll kind of share that a bit more. But, he's good off the ball. He's a good shooter, too.
Yeah.
He creates opportunities to score.
On our last podcast, some of these teams as well are still paying guys that haven't played in years. I've got here as well, the Lakers are still paying this season just under $5 million for Luol Deng, who hasn't played in years. So some of these teams are just...
the Bulls getting paid still.
Yeah, exactly. We'll move on to a team that made the play-in tournament in the bubble last year, the Memphis Grizzlies, who out of nowhere were great last year. They had a record of 34-39 for ninth in the West. Their GM is Zach Klayman, and their coach is Taylor Jenkins. Their guards are Tyus Jones, Grayson Allen, DeAnthony Milton, Marco Guduric, John Concha, Dylan Brooks, Ja Morant, and the rookie Desmond Bain. Their forwards, Jaleel Tripp, Brandon Clark, Xavier Tillman Jr., Sean McDermott's on a two-way, Jaren Jackson Jr. starting off the season injured, Killian Tilly's on a two-way, Kyle Anderson, Justice Winslow, and Mario Hezonja. And then the centers are Gorgie Jeng, Jonte Porter, and Jonas Valanciunas. A team that for most of the year was surprising everyone. They were sitting that 7th or 8th seed pretty much the whole season, and unfortunately had a pretty terrible run in the bubble. Lost a lot of games and lost to the Trailblazers in one game. What do you think about the Memphis this year, Serge? Can they make it in that stacked West, or are they going to be falling down?
I don't think they can. The West seems a bit more stacked this year. And they were outside looking in at the end of last season. It's going to be a fun team to watch. See if Ja Morant improves even further and can carry his team a bit, because I think they're going to need him.
Yeah, that's the questions with this Memphis team. They had a lot of guys either in their rookie or their sophomore years last year have amazing seasons. And if they can keep trending up we got Dylan Brooks and the Brandon Clarks, and again, the Ja Morant. If Ja Morant can take another step forward, he can't be far from making an all-star team, even though we've got guys like Steph Curry coming back from injury this year. But they're an interesting team. Their little improvements will see them, I think, hold on to that 9 or 10 spot. But I can't see them in the top 8. There's just too many good stacked teams with all-stars in front of them.
Yeah, I agree.
Their starting lineup I've got as Ja Morant, Dylan Brooks, Justice Winslow if he's fit. Jaren Jackson Jr., he is injured to start the season, so I wonder if Kyle Anderson or someone will move into that position. And then Valanciunas, who's been pretty good the last couple of years. He's worked himself up to $15 million a year. Yeah, if we see a couple of teams drop in the West that we don't see, maybe Houston, maybe they move into the playoffs. But it's going to be a tough year this year for the Grizzlies.
Yeah, I mean, their team looks pretty good. There's going to be a lot of room for players to grow, but I don't think they're thinking about that right now. I'm sure Ja is, but we'll see.
No, hopefully we just see lots of highlights from him. And if he comes back from injury nice and pretty soon, Jaren Jackson Jr. is one of the guys I'm really interested in looking forward to, because he was probably their best player in front of Ja last year defensively. He can score. He's a great rebound. He's a great defender. Talking about guys that are still getting paid, Dion Waiters is owed this season $12.5 million by the Memphis Grizzlies. I don't think he ever played a game for them either. So that was
where are you sitting now? He got waived by Miami, didn't he?
He was at the Lakers last year again, and remember he got signed and then he got moved. I think they cut him, but he might have been part of the championship team.
Okay, so he went from the Heat to the Lakers last year.
Yeah. He celebrated by taking an edible on the trip back to LA.
Yeah.
and had a wig out and then got fired from the team. Jesus.
Why the hell would you take an edible when you're getting on the plane, though? I just don't understand that.
I don't think it was that long a plane trip either. So he had a wig out, and The doctors had to help him. It's not a good look especially for the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat are like straight down the line. Like they weigh guys like every week to make sure they're keeping up with their diets, and the training is hectic. So you can't get away with any of that stuff with Pat Riley.
Oh, absolutely not. He's not there to mess around.
Serge, let's move on to the top of the Eastern Conference last year with the 56-17 Milwaukee Bucks. The GM is John Horst. The coach again is Mike Budenholzer. Their guards are Jalen Adams on a two-way, Trevon Graham, Pat Connaughton, Drew Holiday was their big signing, DJ Augustine, Sam Merrill, the rookie, Dante DiVincenzo, Brian Forbes, Nick Stauskas is back in the league. Their forwards, Thanasis Antetokounmpo, Giannis Antetokounmpo, the MVP, Torrey Craig, Jordan Nwora, DJ Wilson, two-way contract, Mamadi Diakate, EJ Montgomery, Bobby Portis, good cheeky signing, Chris Middleton, Brook Lopez, their centers, and Justin Patton. Did the Bucks get better this year, Serge?
I think they did. They lost a little bit of depth, but they have the pieces that they need. You know, they have a shooting guard for real now, for point guard as well. Drew Drew's shooting guard.
Shooting guard, point guard. He can play either. Defensively, he can guard 1 to 3 nearly.
But I think they got better. There's some, they didn't get what's the guy from Sacramento?
Bogdanovic.
They didn't get Bogdanovic, which was a bit of a letdown. But the Bucks, I have them on top. I think Giannis is just going to get bigger and better, and he's going to conquer eventually his outside shot. And this team's just very efficient on both sides of the floor.
Yeah, they've done a great job over the last couple of years surrounding Giannis with shooters. He's such a good player, Giannis, that obviously he's impossible to stop once he gets downhill. It takes him about 2 dribbles from the halfway, but he's always looking for shooters as well on those attacks. And their starting lineup this year, one guy I couldn't figure out. So I've got Holiday, Giannis, Middleton, and Lopez. Apart from Giannis, all very good three-point shooters. The other starter, it's either going to be dependent on matchups for me. It could be Dante DiVincenzo. It could be Pat Connaughton. Could also be Bryn Forbes, who, when he was at San Antonio, he's a lights-out shooter. So this team...
True. And DiVincenzo was playing pretty well.
So one or two of those guys are going to be coming off the bench. Also with DJ Augustine to run the point. Torrey Craig, which is a good signing for Denver. They got him for peanuts, 1.6 mil. And I think a guy that's going to help him a lot. I hear people who are joking about him, but Bobby Portis. I watched the Dallas-Milwaukee game, preseason game the other day. I know you can't take too much, but both teams are really trying to give their starters extended runs. And Bobby Portis at 4, he's pretty hard to stop. He's got a good little fadeaway on him. He's a pretty tough defender.
He can shoot the three of it too.
He's one of those guys that can come off the bench and create his own shot, which can take a little bit of pressure off the other guys. So I think he's going to play a big role, like 25 minutes a year this year for Milwaukee. And
they got him for a good price too. He's Bobby Portis making $3.6 million a year. And I look for him to have a good season. It's going to be the first time that he's playing on a winning team,
We say this a lot about certain teams, but the Bucks are the biggest. The season doesn't mean anything. They're going to be in the top 2 in the East. It's all about the playoffs. Can Mike Budenholzer change a few things up? Because we see Miami seem to just kill them in the playoffs, and they need to make some changes defensively, offensively. They need to find a different way to play in the playoffs.
They need, and this is something where early in the season or early in the off season, they were talking about Budenholzer not being able to, maybe he's the problem. Because what happened with Miami was that Miami just put a wall up in the painted area, and they completely stopped Giannis. So they need to find a way to play around that and to have other people involved to move the ball to open up those spaces so Giannis can do what he does. They really fell apart in the postseason.
Yeah, it's happened a few times, unfortunately, now. So this team, we know they're going to be in the top 1, 2, 3 in the East, depending on how many times people play. But Giannis is going to play every game. But it's all about the playoffs, these guys. What can they do? What can Giannis do in the playoffs? He needs to elevate his game a little bit.
Yeah, we need to have a few guys step up and take the load off of him. So
100%.
So,
Middleton,
don't know how to stop him.
Middleton, Holiday. They need to be scoring some points. Again, Serge, this team's got a few guys that have been paying for who aren't playing anymore. So, do you remember Mirza Tilatovic? He's still on $3.5 million getting paid from the Bucks. It's been a couple of years. Larry Sanders. Do you remember Larry Sanders? He got, I think,
Larry
kicked out.
Sanders.
He got kicked out of the league a couple of times. I'm pretty sure he's still just under $2 million, and John Lua is just over $3 million. So they're wasting $8 million of their salary cap on guys that aren't there anymore. So it could have been a nice little rotation piece, but next season.
For sure.
Let's move into a team that I think they're going to be interesting this year. I think they're going to be one of the league pass teams that people are going to be watching. They're going to be exciting. It's going to be the Minnesota Timberwolves. They finished 14th in the West last year with a 19-45 record. Their GM is Gerson Rosas. Their coach, Ryan Saunders, Flip Saunders' son. Their guards are Ricky Rubio, Josh Okogie, Anthony Edwards, Jalen Noel, Jared Culver, Aid Murphy, Ashton Hagens on a two-way, D'Angelo Russell, Malik Beasley. Forwards are Juan Hernan Gomez, Jaden McDaniels, Ed Davis, Jared Vanderbilt, Tyler Cook, Rondé Hollis Jefferson, Jake Lehman, and the centers are Carl Anthony Towns and Naz Reid. I'm hoping to see a jump from a lot of the players on this team, Serge. Especially, everyone's excited to see what's going to happen with Anthony Edwards.
Yeah.
What's the number one pick?
Obviously, going number one in the draft puts a pin on your head, and people are going to be looking at you, and seeing how you perform, and if you underperform, and what kind of player, what personality you are. I think you were mentioning that. What did he say in his first interview post draft?
He doesn't like basketball. He doesn't love basketball.
Who says that?
I know. There's very few guys. I've heard a couple of the guys say that. I can't remember who it was a couple of years ago, but if you want to be the best, the best guys in the league, they're obsessed with basketball. They're obsessed with basketball. They go home, they watch, they play 2K so they can work on things. Like it's your career for the next 20 years. You've got to be obsessed with it for 20 years and see how far you can go.
Yeah. So we don't want another Kyrgios.
No. This team, I think there's going to be a lot of internal growth. I think they're going to give Anthony Edwards a lot of run, D'Angelo Russell. They have you've got to think about this team. So they've got Karl Anthony Towns, who has been an all-star the majority of the last few years he's played. D'Angelo Russell's had an all-star appearance. They've got a first-round draft pick. They've got some good young pieces, but I can't see this team really being higher than 13th in the West. I still think they've got a lot of work to do. If Karl Anthony Towns obviously goes bonkers this year and averages 30, 12, and 5 and has a nearly MVP season, maybe they make the play-in, but I can't see them going much further than that.
Yeah, I mean, play-in would be good for them. I think this team has a lot of talent, but they haven't played together a lot, so there's gonna be a lot of growth. They have a young coach. It's nice to see Flip's son staying another year and signing on with them. I think he's the right coach for a young team.
Yeah, 100%. And we just mentioned Karl Anthony Towns. I don't think COVID hit too many people harder than it hit Cat. His mum unfortunately passed away. I believe he had 7 or 8 family members also pass away from COVID. So to send our love out to Cat, that's as brutal as it gets for anyone. And we send our wishes and prayers out to Cat and his family. And I can't imagine how hard it is to wrap your mind around about to play a 72-game basketball season and be away from your family after all this has happened. So
prayers out to him.
Yeah. This team as well, they've got a few guys, Jared Culver, Josh Okogie, Malik Beasley. If a few of these guys can break out and become, for me, this team needs to get better defensively. And a lot of those smaller pieces, if they can get better defensively, then this team can actually make a little bit of a jump. Again, I think they're a couple of years away from being in the playoffs.
Yeah, and you have 2 stars on that team, 2 all-stars.
Yeah, and
Karl Anthony Towns and Russell.
A lot of teams can't say that. A lot of teams can't say they have 2 stars who are at the beginning of their prime, really. So they've got a lot of room to grow. And if they stay around and this team can grow together, who knows what Edwards, D'Angelo Russell, and a cat will be in a couple of years.
Yeah, for sure. Something to look forward to.
All right, let's move back up the conference, but let's head back to the East with our last team today. They made the NBA Finals in the bubble. We're talking about the Miami Heat. They finished 44-29 last year for fifth in the East. Their GM, coach, all the same, Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra. Let's go through their team now, Serge. Their guards are Jimmy Butler, BJ Johnson, Avery Bradley, Duncan Robinson, Kendrick Nunn, Goran Dragic, Gabe Vincent on a two-way, Tyler Hero, Max Strauss. And their forwards, Mo Harkless, Chris Silva, Precious Achoa, their rookie, Andre Iguodala, Paul Abova, Kelly Olynyk, KZ Opala, Udonis Haslem is there for, must be his 50th season. The centers are Bam Adebayo and Myers Leonard. Pretty good team again, Serge. Pretty good team.
Yeah, I mean, this was my team during the finals last year. So they were such a great team to watch play. They played basketball the right way, full of great pieces. Couple all-stars in there, but I look forward to this team playing with a chip on their shoulder.
Yeah, I love the way you said it was the team you followed. I think anyone who wasn't a Lakers fan was going for the Heat. And as a Dallas Mavericks fan who I don't really hate any teams, Houston probably more than anyone, but Miami and Dallas have had a pretty big rivalry over the last decade and a half. I was rooting for Miami. I wanted to see Miami win. I wanted to see that young team and Jimmy Butler carry this team of a lot of guys people hadn't heard of pretty much into the NBA Finals playing team basketball. And you got to love Pat Riley and Spoelstra, what they do to bring these guys together.
Yeah, I mean, Spoelstra is a mini Pat Riley. They don't have players, coaches. They have a culture. They have a system put in place. You can throw any player into that system. That's why I was cursing this whole chat of Harden getting traded to the Heat because I was like, I don't want any of this part.
No way.
Because Harden is exactly the antithesis of like what's not. It's like it's not Heat culture, you know.
You ain't going to strip clubs and coming back to training fat and shit when you're playing for the Miami Heat, man. Jeez, you'll be in Pat Riley's office like that. As a starting lineup, Serge, I've got something similar to last.
Oh, here, wait, hold on.
Sorry.
Just to go further on that point, did you ever hear that story about apparently they were playing in Cleveland, and this is when LeBron was in Miami, and LeBron wanted a couple of his buddies to fly back with the team, he wanted a couple of his buddies to fly back with the team, and Riley was like, nah. And apparently LeBron was not having it. He was not happy that he didn't get to get his buddies out playing.
Man, I'm pretty sure any other GM generally would let you, but Pat Riley's all about the team. Just a quick story about the Miami Heat, off topic. A close friend of both of ours, Dan Rader, went to Miami years ago when the big three were together to watch a game. He wanted to watch LeBron, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh. He was so excited, paid for really good seats and got there, and they all rested on that night that he got there. So Dan was not happy. That's pretty unlucky.
Yeah, it's almost like buying tickets. Buying tickets for those games way ahead is sometimes not a good idea. You're actually not saving that much money, and you kind of, you know, it's a bit known when players are going to get rested now, which I think it should be.
It's generally towards the end of the season as well.
Yeah, and you see the new rules with that. They're not allowed to rest players during nationally televised games now. They'll get fined.
Yeah. Continuing about the Miami Heat. So they had a lot of rookies play last year. We had Tyler Hero, Kendrick Nunn, Duncan Robinson, I don't think was a rookie, but it's pretty much a rookie. These guys all had unbelievable seasons. Any growth from these guys sees Miami get better to me. But the question is, can they repeat last year's success? Can they go that deep in the playoffs with Milwaukee getting better, Brooklyn getting better? Personally, I don't think Miami make it to the finals or the conference finals this year. Have you got a prediction, Serge? You think how?
They may make it to the conference finals, but I agree that they're not going to make it to the finals again. it's been the second year that Giannis has been expected to make it with the Bucks to the finals. So I think third one's a charm. He's got to get there. And then you have KD and Kyrie. So that's still an experiment that we haven't seen. You don't know. You don't know what that team. That team could be in the finals too. If Durant is Kevin Durant still, and he doesn't have, he hasn't lost a step and his shooting's on point, I don't know if Miami can get past them.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting seasons. Miami, let's see how they go through the season where they're sitting, maybe that all-star break, when no all-star game obviously this year, but there will be a break because obviously they love Tyler Hero, they love Kendrick Nunn, Duncan Robinson, but these guys are all on pretty good contracts, and there is a trade sitting out there for Miami somewhere to bring in another star. I'm not sure who, if it's a Bradley Beal or you never know, halfway through the season, there's always a disgruntled superstar somewhere, but
Beal would be the best. That's my pick for sure.
Beal on that team, that means Jimmy Butler can slide into that small forward position. If you're not having to give up Dragic, but it would be hard not to give up Dragic because I think you're going to have to try and match salaries. And Dragic is on 18 because there's no way for me you're giving up Bam Adebayo. He is the future of Miami.
Yeah, I don't think they should be giving up Hero either. Hero was involved in a lot of trade talks when they were talking about Houston and James Harden. Hero's 19, 20 years old. He's got so many years ahead of him.
Yeah, definitely. Well, this Miami Heat, they're going to be an interesting one. We'll have a chat, obviously, in a couple of pods, but I've got them a little bit further down on the second half of the top 8. But I think it's always healthy for the NBA when the East is stacked because we always know the West is
second half. You have them from 5 to 8.
I do. I've just got a couple of teams ahead of them, and yeah, it's going to be interesting. Well, obviously in a couple of pods we'll talk about that, but just one more thing we'll go through. There's one guy who's still getting paid by the Miami Heat. I have a feeling he's getting paid by Houston Rockets as well. Ryan Anderson, remember him? Big sweep shooting, 6'10" power forward. He's like $5 million from Miami. So
where's he playing these days?
He's gone. He's been out of the league for a couple of years, I think. I think he had a really good year at Orlando. I think then Houston paid $80 million for 4 or 5 years for him. He got traded to Miami, and I think then they cut him, and he's been getting paid there for a couple of years. So
he had a few good seasons. I remember it. He had a nice touch.
He's probably just living on the beach in Miami, getting paid $5 million a year, living the dream. Well, Serge, that's all the teams we're going to go through today. We'll try bang out our next pod. We're going to bang out the New York Knicks, the Oklahoma City Thunder, Orlando Magic, New Orleans Pelicans, Philadelphia 76ers, and the Phoenix Suns. So have some interesting teams to get through then. But thanks for joining us, guys. We're so close to the season starting. I think it's a few days away, literally. Serge and I will try and bang out the rest of these podcasts so then we can give you our predictions for the season. And before we know it, the first game of the season will be tipping off. Then Christmas Day. Serge, you getting pumped?
How good. I'm gonna have to be at my Christmas little celebration there, sneaking in some looks, but yeah, or watch them afterwards, recorded obviously.
Yeah, 100%. We're lucky here that it's on Boxing Day, the games start. Obviously, we've got a time difference to you guys. So the first game, I believe, starts at 6 in the morning, and the last game finishes at 5 or 6 in the afternoon here. So it's a day that my girlfriend hates. But
keep back with a couple of VBs or Carltons or whatever, and
yeah. We'll go a little bit fancier. We'll maybe have a couple of Peronis or something, a couple of Heinekens. But thanks for joining us, guys. Again, COVID's obviously kicking our butts in where Serge is, where I am, wherever you guys are listening. So stay safe, wear a mask, look after each other, guys. And we'll be back very soon. Catch us on YouTube.
Just remember, now you have a shot to not see those family members that you didn't want to see for Christmas.
Exactly. Zoom calls all you need. But thanks, guys. Look after yourselves. Serge, keep balling. We'll catch up soon.
Take care, brother.
Peace.
Have a good one, guys.